So the Bulls are now in their final 15 games of the season. Still can't believe that we're nearing the end of the season with nearly a month left to go before the playoffs begin. But after the Bulls closed out the week with back-to-back wins to snap that 5-game losing streak, the Bulls now make their way to the West Coast to take on some of the top teams in the West, starting tonight against the Kings in Sacramento, who are not one of the top teams in the Western Conference. But then they'll go play the Jazz on Wednesday, who the Bulls actually made good work of earlier in the season with a win. And then they'll close out the week on Friday against the best team in the league, who have already clinched the playoffs in the Phoenix Suns. So in today's video, we'll be discussing these upcoming games, what to be looking out for in each of them, as well as my predictions for the week. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. So obviously we've got some great news, or we received great news on the injury front, that Alex Caruso is back in the lineup and has been removed from the injury report going forward. We even received news that Patrick Williams has started participating in practice with light contact and could possibly even be available by the end of this week when the Bulls take on the Suns. But of course, we did receive the unfortunate news that Lavine was going to be out for the game against the Cavs and has actually been listed as questionable for tonight's game against the Kings as he continues to recover from the ailing knee that has been bothering him for some time now. But in any event, having a guy like Caruso back in the lineup for his defensive impact and pace in transition with his point of attack defense is great to have. So let's start off with tonight's game against the Kings. Now, as some of you know, I live in the Bay Area, and for the past few years, aside from when the season was shut down or fans weren't allowed to be in attendance at stadiums, I always attended the games in which the Bulls played the Warriors or the Kings. And as much as I want to go to the game tonight, I just wasn't able to make the drive up to Sacramento with my work schedule. I also got to see the Bulls play twice already, in Chicago most recently, and when the Bulls played the Warriors earlier in the season. Besides, you guys know by now, I'm basically the worst luck when I attend Bulls games. The Bulls have yet to win a game that I have gone to see live since 2014, when I saw the Bulls play the Lakers at the United Center on Christmas Day. But all that aside, this is a game the Bulls need to win, especially with the games they have ahead of them against the Jazz and the Suns. The Kings are not a good team and haven't been for years. They're not competing for a playoff spot as they are too far out of playoff contention at this point, even though they haven't been officially eliminated. The Kings have lost 4 in a row and 8 of their last 10. Domantas Sabonis is actually currently listed as day-to-day and could be out for tonight's game, which is even better news for the Bulls since they don't have really a good matchup for him at the power forward spot, and Sabonis is a strong rebounder. But obviously the Kings traded away Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield, so we won't see those guys. All of that being said, though, yes, it's a game the Bulls need to win, and you expect them to win, but they still need to take them seriously. They can't play down to their competition like we have seen them do this season, and the Kings still have a borderline all-star player in De'Aaron Fox that is a great scorer and facilitator and a decent defender. But that's the great thing about a guy like Ayo, who takes these kind of challenges head on in guarding the opposing team's best player, and of course it helps when you have a guy like Caruso back in the lineup. This is going to be another game in which Ayo is going to need to be all over De'Aaron Fox, not letting him penetrate to the hoop. Very similar to what we saw the other night when he locked up Darius Garland. The good thing is you don't have to focus as much on De'Aaron Fox on the perimeter because he's just not a good three-point shooter, currently shooting below 30% from 3 this season. Harrison Barnes is another guy that you have to keep an eye on, not like it's an extreme threat, but he still puts up 17 points per game, is a decent rebounder and defender. But yeah, I mean, for this one, the Bulls, you're talking about a game against a team that has struggled all season long to find their identity, and the front office made it worse at the trade deadline to fracture that even more. They're not a good offensive team, not a good defensive team. The pieces they have don't really go well together. I mean, there's a reason the Kings have missed the playoffs for 15 plus years now. That franchise is always in disarray. Then the Bulls will be taking on the Jazz on Wednesday, and this will be interesting because the Bulls played the Jazz at the beginning of the season in that first game after Patrick Williams got injured. That tells you how long it's been. And despite great games from both Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, the Bulls really controlled the pace of that game, especially in the second half. And at the time, of course, Lonzo Ball was mainly tasked with guarding Mitchell, and he forced him to turn the ball over 6 times in that game. So it'll be a little different this go around with Ayo likely being on Donovan Mitchell, and the same will kind of apply in this one, which is now starting to feel like every game where Ayo is going to be assigned to guarding the opposing opposing team's best player. And we all know Mitchell is one of the better scorers in the game and a high-flying athlete, so you really have to ensure that he doesn't start going on the court. Now, what's funny is that, if I remember correctly, I believe Tony Bradley did a significantly better job on Rudy Gobert in that game when the Bulls played them than Vucevic did. And I was begging for Billy Donovan to leave Tony Bradley in the game because he was actually out rebounding Gobert, who had 19 rebounds in total in that game. And it was because the Bulls looked considerably better and started making that run in the third quarter after Bradley was put in the game and Vucevic was out. But either way, I highly doubt that Tony Bradley is going to be getting any kind of playing time in this one, and that Tristan Thompson will be taking the bulk of those backup center minutes. Now, Gobert is currently listed as day-to-day and is questionable for the game that the Jazz have tonight against the Bucks, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that and see if, in fact, he's going to be available to play by Wednesday, because if Gobert isn't in, the Bulls are dodging a huge bullet, given Vucevic has generally not played well against Gobert, even back in his days with the Magic. The other guy you need to be watching out for is Jordan Clarkson, who hasn't had the kind of season he had last year when he won Sixth Man of the Year, but I believe he did have an insane game the other night where he scored 45 points on 80% shooting. Like, yet again, another guy you don't want to have heat up and take over the game coming off the bench. And also don't forget Bojan Bogdanovic, who is having a sneakily good season, scoring 18 points per game on solid efficiency, and he's also a bigger wing who is a threat from deep that the Bulls will need to contain with guys like Derrick Jones Jr. and Javonte Green. I think if you're the Bulls in this one, the thing that you have to worry about in this game is the fact that the Jazz are one of the best offensive teams in the league, but also an elite level defensive team, mainly because of Gobert. And because of Gobert, they're also one of the best rebounding teams in the league, currently 5th in the NBA, which is a problem for the Bulls, who have struggled in giving up too many offensive rebounds and second chance points to their opponent more recently. A guy like Gobert will make you pay for that if you're not careful. Then the Bulls will close out the week against the best team in the league in the Phoenix Suns, who just toyed with the Bulls the last time around these two teams met. Even though it was only a 3-point win, when the Bulls picked up easy points in garbage time, the game wasn't at all close, and the Suns controlled that game the whole way. Kind of insane that the Suns are 54-14 right now, and likely going to blow by winning 60 games this season. But yeah, I mean, this team is incredible. You've got an elite level scorer who can hit from anywhere on the floor in Devin Booker. You've got a young and great two-way big man in DeAndre Ayton, a savvy veteran and future Hall of Famer in Chris Paul, who doesn't even need to score a ton, but his presence in terms of his leadership and being that floor general is just so valuable to that team. And then also the depth. The depth this team has with Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, dare I say it, Cameron Payne, Jay Crowder, JaVale McGee, all of these guys. This team is stacked between young players and veteran high basketball IQ players. So yeah, this one is going to be tough for the Bulls. There really is no way of getting around it, especially if the Bulls don't have Zach Lavine in the lineup. But what they can do is try everything in their power to stop Chris Paul. And I'm sure most of you are probably saying, wait, stopping Chris Paul really over Devin Booker? Well, the reason for that is because Booker's offense runs through CP3. Without Chris Paul and his court vision to get Booker those perfect looks and finding him in his spot, he isn't as effective. The other reason I didn't say Booker is because he's another one of those guys in the NBA that's near impossible to stop. So in order for you to do so, you limit Chris Paul and his ability to run the floor. CP3 currently leads the league in assists, and the bulk of those assists come off buckets from Booker. So yet again, another incredibly hard task for Ayo, locking down a veteran point guard like Chris Paul. But one aspect of Ayo's defense that he's very good at is getting into passing lanes and disrupting the flow of offense, which is something CP3 thrives off of as a point guard. So if Ayo can be 100% on his A game on the defensive end in this one, pestering Chris Paul, which in turn won't allow Booker the freedom that he usually sees on offense, then maybe the Bulls have a shot in this one. But at the same time, that doesn't even consider Ayton not being the best matchup for someone like Vucevic and the double-digit scorers like Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, and Cameron Payne. Like, the Suns just have so many weapons at their disposal, which is what makes them so hard to beat and why they have only lost 14 games all season. Now, as for my predictions for the week, gonna be a tough one. A 3-game West Coast trip, but you guys know I generally like to go bold and always take the optimistic side of my team, so I'm predicting the Bulls will go 2-1 this week, losing only to the Suns. I really think it'll be a tall order to beat those guys. And even the game against the Jazz is questionable, especially if Lavine is going to be out. But I'm not as worried about the Jazz compared to other teams, and especially if Gobert is going to be out of the lineup. That's a wrap, and the Bulls should easily be able to win that game if that's the case. But I want to know what you guys think, though. How do you think the Bulls will do this week in these upcoming 3 games? Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.